Hey, it's Plumber Tom. Thank you for watching my videos. I wanted to let you know really quickly about some awesome resources that I have for you as you're trying to learn. I have free practice tests that you can take if you're preparing for a state test. I have preparation courses that you can take that will guide you through that process if you're getting ready for a test. I have other courses that can help you in learning the plumbing trade. So make sure to check out those resources. You can find a link in the comments below. When you participate in those courses, you're helping me to be able to create more content. So I really appreciate your support. Thanks for watching. My name is Thomas, and in this presentation we are continuing our discussion. This time we're focusing on the tank type electric water heaters. We'll examine some of the components and the basic ways that these water heaters function. These water heaters, the electric tank type, are also very common throughout the United States in areas where natural gas is not available, or maybe only electricity is available. These are a great option. As we discussed before, electric water heaters are very efficient in energy use because all of the energy is used in heating the water. None of it is lost out into the atmosphere through the exhaust and the flue. However, in general, electricity is more expensive than natural gas, and so that's why we don't install them in every single situation. It's generally only where natural gas is not available. Now, in remote areas throughout Utah, many times propane tanks are brought to those locations and a propane gas-fired water heater is used, but sometimes not. And even if there's propane, sometimes electric is the choice. So let's examine electric tank type water heaters. Let's begin our examination of tank type electric water heaters by once again considering we have a tank and we put water in that tank, and somehow we need to heat the water inside of that tank. This time we're using electricity. So what do we have electrically that can create heat? Well, we use what are called heating elements. A heat element is a metal piece where when electricity runs through it, it creates resistance against the electricity and therefore it heats up. And that heating of the elements can be then distributed to the water around it. Now obviously, when we're playing with electricity and water, we have to be really careful because water can be conductive of electricity. So these elements are created and designed to be able to keep the actual element or the piece that is heating up with electrical resistance from touching the water. They're surrounded by a coating that when they're in the water, this coating will keep it from shorting out by touching the water. Now, a note there, that's exactly what happens when they fail. These protections around the element crack, water gets directly to the element, it shorts out, fries, and then it stops working. Well, those can be replaced. But in short, you need to understand that it is the electrical element that puts the heat into the water. On a taller tank type water heater, usually there are two electric elements, one at the top and one on the bottom. When these are ready to heat, the electrical circuit will send heat to the top element first. This heats the water in the top of the tank. As we talked about, hot water rises just like hot air rises, so we get the hot water on the top of the tank up to temperature. Once it reaches temperature, then the electricity is sent down to the bottom element, and it will then begin to heat the water on the bottom. By the time it's done, you should have a full tank of hot water up to temperature from top to bottom. Now this is an important part of the design because when you're running a high level of electricity through, creating resistance and heat, you'd need twice as much of that energy to fire both of those elements at the same time, which could be dangerous. But by relaying one and then the other, we're able to minimize that overdraw of electrical current and still heat the whole tank. But for this reason, it's important to understand that if you're ever troubleshooting and you find electricity at the top element and not at the bottom, please understand it's not broken. This is how it's supposed to work. Let's talk about the elements themselves. It's basically a wire that goes into the water heater and comes back out, so it's a loop. It's protected from contact with the water. But the more surface area you have, the faster it can heat. So we'll see elements that go out and loop back over themselves, doubling up the amount of surface area, and these are much quicker at heating the water. So if we're doing replacements, that's the best to use. They don't use any more electricity, they just have a better surface area for distributing heat, so it gets the job done quicker. As opposed to the ones that just loop straight in and out. They'll work, just not as fast. So now we have a tank with water and some way to put heat into that water, but we need a way to detect the temperature of the water and to turn the electricity on and off as needed to the different elements. This is where we get the thermostats. The thermostat is a device that actually attaches on the outside of the tank. Unlike the gas-fired water heaters, which actually probe the tank and sense the temperature of the water inside the tank, these electric water heaters only sense the surface of the outside of the tank. And by so doing, they can control the electric current in to the elements and heat the water. The upper thermostats will detect the temperature of the tank and allow electricity into the element, heating the upper portion of the tank water, and then it will relay the power down. When it shuts off, it connects to the lower thermostat, which also has a temperature sensor on the outside of the tank, and it allows electricity to flow into the bottom element until it reaches its set temperature. For this reason, both of the thermostats on the top and the bottom of an electric water heater have their own thermostat and temperature control. When you take off the cover, you can see there's a temperature control right on the front of those thermostats. Now, as a plumber, electricity may seem a little bit overwhelming when you see all of these wires coming and going down to the thermostats, down to the bottom elements. But if you really examine what's happening here, it's fairly basic. You have elements that heat, thermostats that control the temperature. As a plumber, if you're ever working on an electric water heater, may I emphasize the fact that these are dangerous. Electricity is dangerous. And I have looked back over my career and realized that there have been very dangerous situations that I was in. And when I say danger, I'm talking life-threatening, like I could be electrocuted by my work on this electric water heater. And I was not adequately trained in electrical safety to be able to use enough caution. Now, the installation of an electric tank type water heater is pretty much the same as any other tank type water heater as far as water connections, the need for an expansion tank, earthquake straps, all of that. Of course, you're not dealing with gas or gas connections or flue connections, but you do need to know how to hook up the electrical wires on the top of the water heater. Basic hint, it's kind of color coded, so black to black, red to red, ground connect to the tank itself. You can handle most of that, right? With emphasis on the fact that you'd never want to work on it while it's turned on. Now, other than that, we've talked about the two basic parts that make this work, the elements and the thermostats, all of which can be replaced. You can check an element to see if it's bad or not by testing it for resistance. Same with the thermostats. If it's continually tripping, turning off, or having issues that way, the thermostats may have gone bad, and those can be replaced. When replacing any of these parts, the thermostat or the elements, just pay close attention to the wires that are connected and where they will reconnect. One of the nice things about an electric water heater is that these parts are very universal. Generally, an element from one manufacturer will fit into another manufacturer's electric type water heater. And same with the thermostats. These thermostats you can buy that are universal. They'll fit on almost any manufacturer's electric water heater. So the key is just to make sure that you're wiring it back the way that it was. Generally, you'll find a wiring diagram on the inside panel of the cover for these electrical parts on the tank. Keep your wires straight. You can put a little tape on them and write on it if you need to, but reconnect it the way it is and it should be just fine.